Hello there, I'm Black Bright News, and this is the last story I'm going to do for today, and it's about the students that were banned from the UK. So there's a story developing that raises some uncomfortable questions about the immigration policy fairness and the way governments make decisions that affect people's lives. The Home Office is facing a legal challenge in the High Court over its decision to stop issuing student visas to people from four countries: Afghanistan, Cameroon, Myanmar, and Sudan. The policy was introduced in March by Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood. The government says it is responding to evidence that some people have been using student visas as a route into the UK before claiming asylum. In other words, the concern is not about studying itself, it is about whether the student visa system is being used by some people as an alternative pathway into the asylum system. Now, it is important to say something here because this is where these discussions often become polarised. Every government has a responsibility to protect the integrity of its immigration system. If there is genuine evidence that visas are being abused, it is entirely reasonable for ministers to investigate that and to take action. Most people would probably agree with that principle. The difficulty comes when that action appears to treat an entire nationality as suspicious. Three Sudanese women, supported by immigration law firm Duncan Lewis, have taken the Home Office to court. They include two doctors and a pharmacist. These are not people arriving without qualifications or ambition. They have already secured offers to study master's degrees at Oxford University and University College of London, two of the most respected universities in the world. Their argument is not simply that they have been inconvenienced, they argue that the government has unfairly singled out four nationalities without properly investigating whether widespread abuse actually exists within those groups. That distinction matters. If someone commits fraud, the law deals with that individual. If organised abuse is taken place, government should investigate and respond. But if restrictions are placed on thousands of people simply because they share the same passport, then questions naturally arise about whether the policy is proportionate and whether it is fair. One of the anonymous Sudanese doctors involved in the case spoke about the emotional impact of the decision. She said she felt she was being treated as someone who intended to abuse Britain's immigration system simply because she was Sudanese. Imagine working for years to become a doctor, earning a place at one of the world's leading universities, only to discover that your nationality has become the deciding factor rather than your achievements. She also made another important point. Sudan is in the middle of a devastating conflict. Many young professionals want to gain advanced education abroad so they can one day return with skills needed to rebuild hospitals, universities, and public services. From her perspective, education is not simply about personal success. It is about helping rebuild a country that has been torn apart by war. That is a perspective which deserves to be heard. The government, however, would likely argue that difficult circumstances in someone's home country cannot remove the need for proper immigration controls. Ministers have repeatedly said that public confidence in the immigration system depends on ensuring that each visa route is used for its intended purpose. So this case is really about something much bigger than four countries. It asks how immigration risk should be assessed. Should governments identify patterns based on nationality if they believe statistical evidence supports that approach? Or should every applicant be judged entirely on their own circumstances, regardless of where they come from? Those are not easy questions. Another concern being raised comes from Britain's universities. The higher education sector has criticised the restrictions partly because international students make an enormous contribution to university life and to the economy. Overseas students pay tuition fees, support local businesses, and contribute billions of pounds each year to the UK economy. Many universities have become increasingly dependent on that income, particularly at a time when financial pressures across the sector are growing. If students from particular countries begin to believe they are no longer welcome, Britain could lose talented researchers, doctors, engineers, and future business leaders to countries such as Canada, Australia, or the United States instead. There's also the question of Britain's international reputation. For decades, British universities have attracted some of the brightest minds from around the world. That has strengthened the UK's influence globally. Policies that appear to discriminate against certain nationalities, even if introduced for security or immigration reasons, can affect how the country is viewed overseas. Supporters of the legal challenge also question the evidence behind the policy. They argue that if the Home Office believes there has been systematic abuse, it should be held to demonstrate that with robust evidence. If the evidence is weak or incomplete, then introducing restrictions affecting around 4,300 prospective students could be seen as disproportionate. Ultimately, that is what the High Court will be asked to consider. This case is not about whether immigration rules should exist. It is not even about whether visa abuse happens. Most people accept that every immigration system needs rules and safeguards. The real question is whether the government's response is legally justified, evidence-based, and fair. Can a government lawfully restrict opportunities for thousands of people based largely on their nationality, or does fairness require each applicant to be assessed entirely on their own merits? That is the balance the court will now have to examine. Whatever the outcome, this case could have implications far beyond these four countries. It may influence how future immigration policies are designed, how governments assess risk, and how Britain balances border security with its long-standing reputation as a country that values education, opportunity, and the rule of law. I'm interested to know what you think. Should governments be able to impose visa restrictions on particular nationalities if they believe there is evidence of abuse? Or should every applicant be judged individually, regardless of where they come from? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Personally, it's a difficult one. I mean, just supposing evidence comes back to say 90% of Sudanese nationals that come to the UK and for university end up absconding or doing whatever the immigration office believes that it is they're doing, then there might be an argument. But if they cannot prove that, at least I would say 75% or 50% even are falling foul of the law or the immigration system, I'm not sure if they can really justify that. We'll have to watch this space because it really is an interesting one, because I know America was doing something similar. I don't know what the outcome of that was, but I guess they have different immigration rules and different systems and goodness knows what. So I'm not quite sure what is happening with that. But I am interested in your comments. You might just say, keep Britain for the British. We don't want them over here. This is the whole point. We're reducing immigration. We're doing this and we're doing that. But how is the UK going to be financed? I think a lot of people underestimate how much these foreigners actually contribute to the economy. I'm not saying anything else. And that's all from Black Bite News. Bye-bye for now. Until next time. Take care of yourselves and each other.